The operation was codenamed Scythian Gambit. The arena was Baku, Azerbaijan. The time was 02:17 a.m. In a damp third-floor apartment overlooking the Caspian Sea, a Mossad Katsa, a field intelligence officer, named Eitan, crouched in the dark. He wasn't breathing. He was sipping the air, a technique taught at the Midrasha, the agency's training academy, to minimize sound and metabolic rate. His target, a German procurement specialist named Dr. Ulrich Hauf, was asleep 2 floors below, guarded by 2 men from Iran's Ministry of Intelligence, Vivak. Hauf was the linchpin. He wasn't just selling components for Iran's nuclear program, he was selling the mastery of them. High-frequency converters and vacuum pumps that could exponentially increase uranium enrichment. Hauf was the central pillar of Israel's secret war, the multi-decade clandestine effort to dismantle Tehran's nuclear ambitions from the inside. This secret war wasn't fought with armies. It was fought with flawed centrifuges, compromised shipping manifests, and whispered promises to disillusioned scientists. It was a war of sabotage, persuasion, and, when necessary, elimination. Back in the Glasser Tower, Mossad's fortified headquarters north of Tel Aviv, Ariel Kahan watched Eitan's operation through a digital keyhole. Kahan was not a Katsa. He was not a trigger puller. He was an analyst in the Maluka division, the Kingdom, the agency's signal and data intelligence branch. He was, in essence, the man who provided the God view. His screen was a mosaic of compromised data. Eitan's biometric feed, thermal imaging from a drone hovering 10,000 feet above, and an intercept of the Vivak Guard's mobile communications. Kahan's job was to see the pattern, to be the digital lookout. "Thermal 2 is moving," Kahan typed into the encrypted burst communicator. "Kitchen." Probable bladder. In Baku, Eitan saw the message on his wrist-mounted device and froze. He waited. The man below returned to his cot. "Window is clear," Kahan typed. "You have 90 minutes until sunrise." Kahan was known for his precision. His colleagues called him the metronome. He was the invisible hand guiding the Katsa, the man who processed the chaos of the field into cold, actionable data. He ensured the operators came home. The Scythian Gambit was his plan, a deepfake operation to plant a microscopic flaw in the data Hauf was selling. Ariel Kahan was, by every metric, one of Mossad's most valuable assets, and for 18 months he had also been working for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. To understand the betrayal, one must first understand the man. Ariel Kahan was not recruited in a smoky bar. He was not honey-trapped or blackmailed. He was a walk-in, a philosophical defector. Kahan lived in a sterile apartment in Ramat Gan. He was a brilliant analyst, a man who saw the world in systems of logic. He had joined Mossad not out of nationalism, but out of an intellectual belief in order. He believed Israel was a logical necessity in a chaotic region, but the secret war had worn him down. He didn't see logic. He saw arrogant, impulsive cowboys in the Tzomet, Field Operations Division, making catastrophic, gut-based decisions. He saw his own meticulous, data-driven reports that advised against certain operations, that warned of collateral damage, dismissed by his superiors, men like Ronan Elmaleh, the gruff head of the department. "Your analysis is clean, Ariel," Ronan had told him just a year prior, tossing a 40-page report onto his desk. "But it has no soul. The field is messy. Sometimes you have to kick the door down." That dismissal festered. Kahan, the man who saw the entire board, was being told his vision was secondary to a feeling. He was passed over for promotion. He watched men he considered intellectually inferior, the Katsaim he babysat from his terminal, lauded as heroes. His disillusionment was an ocean, deep and cold. He began to see Mossad, and by extension the state, as an engine of chaos, no better than its enemies. It had lost its logical purity. In his spare time, Kahan worked in the Hamishtala, the nursery, Mossad's vast digital archive. He wasn't just an analyst, he was an architect. He had helped design the security protocols for the Glory server, the air-gapped mainframe that held the crown jewels, the complete operational file for the secret war. He knew its every firewall, its every backdoor, its every digital tripwire. He knew it better than the men who had signed off on its creation. He began to compile a small private file. Not secrets at first, just patterns. Patterns of Mossad's operational failures, its breaches of protocol, its internal political squabbles. He was building a case, if only for himself, that the system was fundamentally broken. This private file, hidden in a non-allocated partition of his own terminal, was the first step. It was the seed of an idea. What if I could force them to be better? What if I could impose logic from the outside? The recruitment happened not in Vienna or Cyprus, but in Paris. Kahan was attending a cybersecurity summit, a boring affair of bureaucratic handshakes and vendor presentations. He took an afternoon to walk through the Tuileries garden. A man sat on a bench near the reflecting pool, reading a copy of Rilke. He was older, with the soft academic look of a history professor. He looked up as Kahan passed. "A beautiful, orderly place," the man said in perfect, unaccented English. "The French believe in the geometry of nature. Do you find that to be true, I wonder?" Kahan, normally reserved, found himself stopping. "I find geometry is the only thing that is true. Nature is just chaos waiting for an equation." The man smiled. He introduced himself as Professor Jawad Al-Farsi. He claimed to be from a Belgian think tank, a specialist in conflict resolution. They spoke for nearly 2 hours. They did not speak of Israel or Iran. They spoke of philosophy, of the Roman Republic's fall, of the failure of ideology in the face of human ego. Al-Farsi was a masterful psychologist. He wasn't a Vivac agent. He was far more senior. He was a listener from the Quds Force, the IRGC's elite external operations wing, a man tasked with identifying not just targets, but souls that could be turned. He had been studying Kahan for 6 months, ever since Kahan had posted an anonymous, scathing critique of Western intelligence doctrine on a niche academic forum. "You sound like a man," Al-Farsi said, "who is deeply disappointed by the world's refusal to be logical." "I am disappointed," Kahan replied, "by men who mistake their ego for strategic necessity." Al-Farsi gave Kahan his card. "Should you ever wish to discuss philosophy with someone who understands, I am always available." Kahan knew on some level this was a dangle. He was trained to spot it, but his own arrogance provided the perfect cover. He believed he was the one in control. He believed he was the one recruiting Al-Farsi, a potential channel to a logical element within the enemy state. He waited 3 weeks. Then, from a secure laptop in a public library, he sent his first message. "The geometry is flawed. Perhaps it is time to draw new lines." The response from Al-Farsi, a cutout for a handler in Tehran, was warm, validating, and patient. For the first 2 months, they exchanged nothing but philosophical abstracts. They were building a narrative, a shared intellectual justification for what was to come. Then, Kahan made the first move. He sent a low-level analysis of Mossad's logistical chains for its operations in the Horn of Africa. It was classified but not critical. It was a test. The reply from Al-Farsi was immediate, and it came with a digital payload, a file containing the internal communications of a Hezbollah cell in Berlin that Mossad had been trying to penetrate for a year. It was a gift, a trade. Kahan was stunned. This wasn't a one-way street. This was collaboration. "We are not barbarians, Ariel," Al-Farsi wrote. "We too are trapped in a system run by zealots. Perhaps 2 logical men on opposite sides can create a balance." This was the hook. Kahan wasn't a trader selling secrets. He was a balancer, a shadow peacemaker. His ego was now fully engaged. The Iranians, masters of long-game manipulation, never paid him a cent. They knew money would insult him. They paid him in what he craved, respect and superior information. They fed him genuine, high-value intelligence on rival Sunni extremist groups, intel that Kahan discovered and fed back into Mossad's system. This cemented his position. His reports became legendary. He was the Oracle. He could predict terrorist movements, locate arms caches. Ronan El-Maleh, his boss, began to rely on him utterly. Ariel Kahan was suddenly the most successful analyst in the kingdom, and with his new elevated clearance, he began to make the first real cut. He was still guiding the Scythian gambit in Baku. He saw a flaw. a VVAC counter-surveillance team that Mossad's plan had not accounted for. His duty was to report it. He did not. He typed to Eitan, "Window is clear." He watched, his heart a cold stone in his chest, as Eitan moved to plant the device. He watched as the VVAC team, alerted by their own analyst in Tehran, kicked in the door. The last thing Kahan saw on the feed was the muzzle flash. The signal went dead. In Tel Aviv, the spook room erupted in static and shouting. Kahan calmly began the data wipe protocol. Ronan slammed his fist on the console. "What happened, Ariel? What did we miss?" Kahan looked at his boss, his expression a mask of professional grief. "The fog of war, Ronan. Sometimes the field is just messy." The loss of Eitan in Baku was a shock, but it was categorized as an operational failure. A tragic, acceptable cost in the secret war. But Kahan, now codenamed the Oracle by his Iranian handlers, was just beginning. He had proven his loyalty to his new masters. Now he began to dismantle the secret war piece by piece. He operated with surgical precision. He never leaked everything. He leaked one critical detail, just enough to make an operation fail, just enough to make a Katsa get caught, just enough to make a carefully recruited scientist change his mind. In Hamburg, Germany, Mossad was tracking a shipment of specialty steel bound for a known Iranian front company. The plan was to intercept it at sea. Kahan leaked the route of the Mossad surveillance vessel. The Iranian Navy stumbled upon it in international waters, forcing a confrontation. The shipment went through. In Dubai, a Sayanim, a local Jewish helper, who ran a high-end electronics store, was feeding Mossad information on Iranians buying dual-use technology. Kahan leaked the store's inventory manifest. It seemed innocuous, but the Iranians used it to cross-reference their own agents' purchases, identifying the only store that could have known. The Sayanim vanished. In Vienna, a Mossad Katsa was meeting a high-level official from the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. It was the culmination of a 2-year recruitment. Kahan didn't expose the agent. He simply sent an anonymous tip to the Austrian police about a suspicious package in the park where the meeting was set. The meeting was spooked. The official flew back to Tehran and never traveled again. Mossad was bleeding. Operations that had been planned for years were collapsing at the final stage. The agency was gripped by a cold paranoia. Morale plummeted. Every failure was attributed to bad luck, superior enemy counterintelligence, or field agent error. The secret war was grinding to a halt, and in Tel Aviv, Ariel Kahan received a commendation for grace under pressure, for his tireless analytical work trying to discover why everything was failing. He was the arsonist leading the fire investigation. The investigation did not begin in the glory server. It began on a whiteboard in the cramped, windowless office of Dalia Shalev. Dalia was an analyst in Bitachon Sadeh, internal security. She was not an investigator, she was a patternist. Her job was to review failed operations and find the human error. She was obsessive, humorless, and brilliant. She didn't believe in bad luck. She was reviewing the Baku failure. The official report, written by Kahan, cited a spontaneous VVAC security sweep. Dalia stared at the timeline. The VVAC team had hit the apartment 14 minutes before Eitan was scheduled to leave. They didn't sweep the building. They went straight for that specific apartment. They knew. She cross-referenced this with the Hamburg failure. The Iranian vessel wasn't on a random patrol. Its course had been altered 12 hours before the Mossad ship arrived. A perfect intercept trajectory. They knew. She pulled the Dubai and Vienna files. It was the same. Surgical precision. The enemy wasn't reacting to Mossad's presence. They were anticipating it. This wasn't a leak. This was a hemorrhage. And it wasn't coming from the field. A field agent might compromise one operation. This was systemic. The leak was coming from the God view. Dalia went to Ronan Elmaleh. "We have a traitor in Maluka," she said flatly. Ronan dismissed her. "Impossible. My division is clean. You're chasing ghosts, Dalia. This is just good work by the Iranians. We got arrogant." "Arrogance doesn't explain predictive accuracy," Dalia retorted. "Someone is reading our mail. I want authorization for a blue flame audit." A blue flame was the agency's nightmare. a top-to-bottom, invasive digital audit of an entire division. It was a declaration of internal war. Ronan refused, so Dahlia went above him. She went to the director. She didn't present suspicion, she presented data. A graph showing the probability of operational failure before and after a specific date 18 months ago. The line on the graph wasn't a curve, it was a cliff. The director gave her the authorization. "Find this ghost," he ordered, "and do it without tearing this agency apart." The Blue Flame audit began in silence. Dahlia and her small team of 4 digital forensics experts sealed the Maluka division. They weren't just looking at the Glory server. They were taking a snapshot of every terminal, every access log, every internal message. Ariel Kahan knew this was coming. He had anticipated it. He was not a careless traitor. For months, he had been grooming his digital footprint. He never accessed files outside his purview. He never downloaded anything to a physical drive. His security logs were a perfect, boring picture of a model analyst. When Dahlia's team analyzed his terminal, they found nothing. No hidden files, no unauthorized access, no external communications. He was, by every metric, the cleanest man in the division. "He's too clean," Dahlia muttered to her analyst. "Look at this. He logs in at 08:30 every day, logs out at 18:01. He takes exactly 45 minutes for lunch. No one is that consistent. He's not a man, he's an algorithm." Dahlia shifted her search. She stopped looking for what he did. She started looking for what he didn't do. She found it in the server's stress logs. During the 12 hours before the Baku failure, the entire Glory server was under immense strain. Everyone was pulling data, running simulations. Ronan's log showed 4,000 queries. Other analysts, 2,000, 3,000. Ariel Kahan's log showed 45. He wasn't researching, he wasn't analyzing. He was just watching. He already knew the outcome, Dahlia whispered. He wasn't running scenarios. He was monitoring. It was circumstantial. It wasn't proof. Dahlia couldn't find how he was communicating. She dug deeper into the sub-basement of the operating system, and she found it, a ghost partition, a tiny 50-megabyte logical drive that had been quarantined by a diagnostic program 3 years ago. The program had Kahan's signature on it. It was a masterpiece. He had hidden his communication software inside a fake bad sector of the hard drive. His method was brilliant. He never sent anything. His terminal simply logged his activity. His Iranian handlers, using a backdoor exploit and a global weather data update, a feed Kahan's terminal needed for analyzing shipping, would read that log file. It looked like a routine diagnostic ping. Kahan wasn't sending messages. He was being read. Dahlia now had the how. She put a watchdog on the partition. The next time Kahan's terminal was read, she would know. Ariel Kahan felt the change before he could prove it. A microscopic lag in his system, a query that took 400 milliseconds instead of 300. Dahlia's watchdog was a subtle but not invisible drag. He was caught. He didn't know when they would come, but he knew they were there, watching him. He sent an emergency signal to Al-Farsi using a one-time pad hidden in the metadata of a family photo he emailed to his non-existent aunt. The signal was simple: extraction. Now. The reply that came back chilled him. It was no longer the warm, philosophical Professor Al-Farsi. The tone was cold, military. It was from his true handler, a Quds Force general. Extraction denied. You have one final objective, the Orchard Protocol. The Orchard Protocol was the Iranians' code name for their ultimate prize. Kahan had been feeding them fruit from the tree, one piece at a time. Now they wanted him to cut the tree down. They wanted the Glory server's master file. This wasn't an operational detail. This was everything. It was the secret war itself. It contained the real names of every Mossad Katsa in the Damocles Sword program. It held the locations of every safe house in Europe and the Middle East. It had the bank accounts, psychological profiles, and family names of every Iranian scientist, official, and logistics manager who was secretly working for Israel. Leaking this file wasn't sabotage. It was a death sentence for hundreds of people. Kahan was a man who had justified betrayal as a logical rebalancing. This was not logic. This was annihilation. He refused. "This was not our agreement. This is chaos." The general's reply was brutal. "Your agreement was with a fiction we created to soothe your conscience. You are a soldier, Oracle, and this is your order." They sent him a photograph. It was taken that morning from across the street from his apartment. A man in a delivery van, waving. "We can extract you," the message read, "or we can expose you. Your choice, but the orchard will be delivered." Ariel Kahan, the man who believed he was smarter than the system, realized he was just another tool. Trapped by his own ego, he saw only one path out. He would burn the world to save himself. The Glory server was air-gapped, meaning it was not physically connected to the outside internet. To get data off it, Kahan couldn't email it. He couldn't use a USB. Dahlia knew this. She assumed he would try to photograph the screen or write it down. She had physical surveillance on him, but Kahan was an architect. He knew a flaw in the system he had helped design, the server's internal audio diagnostic system. Kahan initiated his final act. He told Ronan he was running a deep system integrity check to find the source of the leaks. A perfect cover. This gave him legitimate access to the server's core index. He requested the orchard file. The system logged it as part of his authorized diagnostic. Then, he executed the program he had hidden in the bad sector partition. It was a marvel of malign genius. The program converted the 40-gigabyte orchard file into a high-frequency audio signal, a hiss, pitched far above the range of human hearing. His computer's sound card began playing this hiss. To any human, the room was silent. But to the modified personal music player sitting in his briefcase by his desk, it was receiving a massive data transfer. Dahlia, watching his terminal activity from her office, saw it. "He's accessed the orchard index. He's not reading it. He's copying it." "How?" her analyst typed. "There's no data outflow." "The audio card," Dahlia realized. "The network traffic is internal, but he's outputting to audio. Lock his terminal, now." The command went out. In Kahan's office, his screen flashed red. "Access denied, admin lockout." But Kahan was prepared. This was his dead man's switch. The moment his terminal was locked, a secondary program automatically triggered. It wasn't subtle. It was a digital bomb. It bypassed the hiss and used the one external connection Kahan's terminal had, the high-priority, encrypted line to the Glasser Tower's emergency services, the line for a fire alarm or medical alert. Kahan's program hijacked that line. It wasn't an audio file. It was a data burst, a raw, compressed, and encrypted transmission of the entire orchard file, fired in a single 12-second blast at an Iranian-controlled satellite listening post in Syria. The moment the transfer completed, the program began wiping his terminal, frying the hardware with a massive voltage spike. An alarm blared through the Maluka division, not a blue flame audit, a red ball breach, the highest level security failure. When the Keydon unit, Mossad's internal action team, smashed through his office door, they didn't find Ariel Kahan frantically destroying evidence. They found him calmly straightening his tie. Smoke poured from his melted workstation. He held his briefcase in one hand. Dahlia was right behind the team, her face pale. "On the ground, Kahan!" the Keydon commander yelled. Ariel didn't move. "It's done," he said, not to the soldiers, but to Dahlia. "He's right, you know. Ronan. The field is messy." He held up the music player from his briefcase. "You were looking for this, I assume?" The Keydon leader snatched it. Dahlia knew instantly. "It's a decoy. The hardware is fried." He burst transmitted. "Where did it go, Ariel?" "You're the patternist, Dahlia. You tell me." He sneered. The confrontation was short, brutal, and silent. Kahan was subdued and dragged from the room. The metronome had finally stopped, but the damage was already done. The orchard file was gone. It was in the hands of the Quds force. The God View was now in enemy hands. In the command center, the full horror of the breach became clear. The orchard file contained the identities of 42 active Qatsaim, 112 high-level Sayanim, and most critically, 18 keystone assets, Iranian nationals, including 2 nuclear scientists and a logistics general in the IRGC, who were spying for Israel. The secret war wasn't just compromised, it was facing total extinction. The Iranians wouldn't act immediately. They would decrypt the file, verify the assets, and then, in a single coordinated global sweep, they would liquidate the entire network. Mossad had, by Dalia's estimate, less than 24 hours. The director initiated Protocol Cascade. It was the broken arrow of Israeli intelligence, an order never before given. It was not an order to attack. It was an order to run. Every asset, every katsa, every Sayanim on the orchard list was to be burned. The command center became a scene of controlled, desperate chaos. Dalia, Ronan, his face a mask of gray shock, and every analyst who was not Kahan began a global high-speed extraction. It was a race against time, fought with coded text messages, pre-arranged danger signals, and frantic phone calls to dormant safe houses. In Hamburg, the Sayanim, who had replaced the one in Dubai, got the simple message: "Your sister is ill." He left his shop, his family, and his life, and drove to a Belgian safe house, all in 90 minutes. In Argentina, a cultural attaché, a katsa, monitoring Iranian activity, saw the red light flash on her encrypted home router. She grabbed her go bag, containing a passport and 50,000 euros, and was on a flight to Madrid under a false name before the Argentine government was even aware. The Scythian gambit was rebuilt. The team that replaced Eitan in Baku was told to walk away, leaving millions of dollars in equipment. The cost was catastrophic. 30 years of network building, of cultivating relationships, of patiently placing assets. All of it was dismantled in 6 hours. But the hardest calls were to the keystone assets inside Iran. There was no extraction for them. Dalia Shalev, the woman who found the ghost, was now forced to haunt her own people. She had to send the suicide signals, the messages that told the assets they were blown. To the nuclear scientist in Isfahan, she sent a pre-arranged spam email with a single JPEG attachment. The scientist saw it, excused himself from his lab, and ingested the cyanide pellet he had carried in a hollowed tooth for a decade. To the IRGC general, there was no way to signal. He was a passive asset. Dalia and Ronan could only watch satellite feeds of his home, waiting for the Quds force to arrive. The secret war was not almost destroyed. It was destroyed. Mossad had just committed institutional self-immolation to save the lives of its people. By dawn, 85% of the human assets were safe, extracted, or in deep hiding. But 15%, including the general and another scientist, were dark. They were gone. The network that had held back the Iranian nuclear program was blind. Ariel Kahan was never tried in a court of law. He was never seen again. He was taken to Facility 1391, a black site from which no one returns. He was debriefed for months. He gave them everything, his mind finally broken by the totality of his failure. He had not balanced the world. He had simply been a pawn in a game he mistook for philosophy. His Professor Al-Farsi was never identified. The secret war, as it had been known, was over. The Iranian program, free from the constant sabotage and internal leaks, accelerated. Israel was forced to move from a war of sabotage to a war of preparation. Dalia Shalev was promoted. She became the new head of Maluka, inheriting the kingdom that Kahan had poisoned. Her first job was to rebuild the entire God view from scratch, under a new security doctrine so severe it bordered on paranoia. Her victory was a funeral. She had found the traitor, but only after he had pulled the pin. She had saved the people, but lost the war. The final hollow irony belonged to Ronan Elmaleh, the man who had dismissed Dalia's fears and Ariel's analysis. He was the one who signed off on Kahan's promotion. He was forced into early retirement. The case of the Oracle remains one of the deepest wounds in the history of intelligence. It is a study in the architecture of betrayal, a lesson that the most profound vulnerabilities are not in firewalls, but in the human heart. Kahan's betrayal was not born of greed or ideology in the traditional sense, but of a corrosive blend of intellectual arrogance and professional disillusionment. He almost destroyed Israel's secret war. But in the end, the almost was a statistical footnote. He forced Mossad to destroy its own creation. The orchard was cut down, and the silence it left behind, the echo of that massive, sudden emptiness, was the true victory for Tehran. The war in the shadows had to begin all over again, from zero. The story of Ariel Kahan is a closely held secret, a case study taught only at the highest levels of Facility 1391. The lessons learned from his betrayal were written in the blood of assets lost and the smoking ruins of a 30-year operation. If you want more reconstructions of the world's most complex and clandestine operations, this is what we do. Click that subscribe button and join our investigation.